I used to think I understood bad weather. I grew up in Southern California, where bad weather usually meant the sky had the audacity to turn gray for a few hours, and everyone suddenly started acting like we were living through a minor natural disaster. Then I moved to London. 2 years later, I have reached a point where I can look outside at 7 in the morning, see absolutely nothing dramatic happening, and somehow feel personally betrayed by the atmosphere. There is no thunderstorm, no hurricane. Sometimes there isn't even much rain, just a gray sky, wet pavement, a little wind, and that particular London dampness that seems to know exactly how to get through a jacket. Now, watch this video till the end as I have covered every aspect of weather, and this video gets very interesting by the end, as I have also said what weather means to an American's versus a Brit. The strange part is that nothing terrible has happened. My flat is still standing, my work hasn't disappeared, my friends are still texting me, there is food in the fridge, and yet, on some mornings, the weather changes the emotional temperature of the entire day before I've even left my bedroom. I start making tiny calculations. Do I walk? Do I take the tube? Do I need an umbrella? Is it actually raining? Or is the air just aggressively moist? Will my hair survive? Will my shoes survive? More importantly, will my mood survive? And after 2 years here, I started wondering whether I had been blaming the wrong thing, because I came to London with a very simple theory. California had sunshine, London had rain. I liked sunshine, so naturally I would miss it. Very scientific. Unfortunately, the more I looked into it, the less convincing that explanation became. London isn't actually a city where it rains continuously from January to December. The weather is much more complicated than the stereotype. The Atlantic sends constantly changing weather systems toward Britain, which means London can move from blue sky to cloud to drizzle to wind and back again with the emotional stability of someone changing their mind in a group chat. Southern California is different. Its Mediterranean climate produces relatively dry summers and wetter winters, and long stretches of clear weather are normal enough that sunshine can become background scenery. That's probably the part I never appreciated when I lived there. I didn't wake up thinking, wow, another beautiful sunny morning. What an incredible privilege. I just woke up and went outside. Sunshine was infrastructure. It was there in the same way sidewalks were there. I could make plans without consulting the sky. If someone suggested getting coffee outside, the weather was rarely the first logistical question. In London, the forecast has somehow become a member of every group chat I belong to. If you're loving this video, then hit the like button and also hype this video. And if you want to watch the extended versions of these stories and also want to watch exclusive videos, then consider joining my membership. But here's where the story gets more interesting. Maybe I don't actually miss sunshine as much as I miss light. London sits much farther north than Southern California, and that difference becomes especially obvious in winter. The days get shorter, the sun rises later, and it sets earlier. Add thick cloud to that, and the middle of the day can sometimes feel like someone turned the brightness setting down on the entire city. You can technically be awake during daylight hours and still spend most of those hours inside, under artificial lighting, looking at a screen, before walking home after the sun has already disappeared. And light isn't just decoration for the human body. It helps regulate our circadian rhythms, which influence sleep, alertness, and the timing of all sorts of biological processes. That doesn't mean every gloomy Tuesday is secretly a medical event, and I definitely don't want to turn ordinary winter misery into a diagnosis. Seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, is a real form of depression with a recurring seasonal pattern, and feeling annoyed by drizzle is obviously not the same thing. But the distinction made me think about my own experience differently. Maybe the question isn't simply, does rain make me sad? Maybe it's, what happens when my body and my schedule are getting less daylight than I'm used to? I started noticing how strange my winter routine actually was. I could wake up, open the curtains, see a sky that looked like wet concrete, make coffee, sit at my desk, and work for hours, and barely experience the outdoors at all. Then I'd finally leave the flat, and it would be dark again. Technically, I had lived through a whole day. Emotionally, sometimes it felt like the day had never properly started. There was no dramatic transition from morning into afternoon into evening. It was more like one long gray loading screen. And when you work remotely, as I do, there is another complication. The weather doesn't necessarily force you outside. It can make staying inside incredibly easy. That sounds comfortable until you realize how much of a day can disappear without any physical transition. In California, going outside was often the default. Here, sometimes going outside feels like a small administrative project. I check the weather, I look at the temperature, I decide which shoes won't betray me, I find an umbrella, then I reconsider the umbrella because it's windy, then I leave without it and immediately regret my entire philosophy of life. None of these decisions is important. That's exactly why they're interesting. Weather doesn't always hit us with one huge inconvenience. Sometimes it charges us in tiny coins. Let me know in the comments what you think of it. Think about a normal London journey. You leave your flat and walk to the station. Maybe you're lucky and it's dry. Then you wait outside for a bus. A little rain starts. You put up your umbrella. The wind arrives and turns the umbrella into modern art. You get on the train with wet sleeves. You sit down next to someone whose coat is also wet. You arrive. Walk another 10 minutes, and by the time you reach your destination, the rain has stopped completely. That's the most irritating part. The sky didn't even commit it inconvenienced you, and then immediately moved on. You are the one left carrying the evidence. London's transport system is one reason weather can feel unusually physical here. Walking, buses, trains, cycling, and the underground connect millions of people without requiring everyone to sit inside a private vehicle. That's a huge advantage for city life. But it also means the weather is part of the journey. In a car, rain can become something happening on the other side of the windshield. On foot, rain is something happening to your socks. On public transport, it can follow you through the entire system as wet coats, crowded platforms, slippery pavement, and the faint realization that you probably should have left 20 minutes earlier. And this is where I discovered what I think of as the weather friction budget. A rainy day doesn't need to contain a catastrophe to feel exhausting. Maybe your shoes get wet, your hair gets weird, your glasses fog up, your bicycle seat is soaked, your train is delayed, your coat doesn't dry overnight. You have to carry an umbrella into a cafe and figure out where to put it without creating a small indoor lake. Each problem is ridiculous on its own, but the human brain doesn't experience a day as a spreadsheet of individually harmless inconveniences. They accumulate. One tiny irritation meets another, and suddenly you're standing in a supermarket wondering why you are emotionally furious at a cucumber. Of course, not everyone experiences this. That's important. Because the moment we say London weather makes people miserable, we start pretending there is one universal London experience. There isn't. Some people genuinely love rain. Some people find it calming. Rain makes staying home feel socially acceptable. It gives you permission to make tea, read, watch a movie, or do absolutely nothing without feeling like you're wasting a beautiful day. I've had those days too. There is something wonderful about hearing rain against a window when you are warm and dry inside. The same weather that feels romantic from one side of the glass can feel completely different when you're standing on the other side waiting for a bus. That made me ask a much less comfortable question. Who gets to experience rain as cozy? Imagine two people looking at the exact same gray sky. One has a warm, well-insulated home, flexible working hours, money for a taxi if necessary, and no reason to spend 3 hours outside. The other lives in a cold rental, worries about heating costs, commutes across the city, and works in a job where staying home isn't an option. They are looking at the same weather, but they aren't experiencing the same climate. The atmosphere is identical. The consequences aren't weather has a social life, and some people pay more for it than others. That becomes especially obvious when you look inside London's homes. The city has an enormous variety of housing, from modern apartments to Victorian terraces, Georgian buildings, converted houses, and post-war flats. They don't all handle cold, moisture, and ventilation equally well. In England, the latest housing survey reported that around 1.4 million homes had a damp problem in 2024, and a much larger share of households reported issues involving condensation, damp, or mold. Suddenly, London weather doesn't just mean what happens outside my window. For some people, it means cold floors, condensation on the glass, mold on the wall, and a heating bill arriving with the timing of a personal insult. The economics of warmth are easy to overlook when you're thinking about weather as a mood. If your home is poorly insulated, cold weather isn't simply uncomfortable. It can cost more to heat, condensation becomes harder to manage, damp can become a maintenance problem. Renters may not control the building they live in, even though they are the ones living with its weaknesses every day. The city can have excellent drainage systems and sophisticated flood planning, but none of that helps much if the place you're sleeping in feels damp in February, a documentary about rain can very quickly become a documentary about housing because weather doesn't stop being relevant when you close the front door. And then there are the people who can't close that door at all. Delivery riders, construction workers, cleaners, transport staff, and other outdoor workers experience weather as part of their working conditions. For someone ordering dinner from the sofa, heavy rain might mean convenience. For the person cycling through that rain to deliver it, it means wet clothes, reduced visibility, cold hands, and greater physical effort. Technology has made it easier for some of us to avoid unpleasant weather, but it hasn't eliminated the weather. Sometimes it has simply moved the exposure onto somebody else's route. Comfort can be purchased. Exposure cannot always be avoided. This also explains something I had noticed about British people. They don't necessarily seem happier about bad weather than I am. They just seem to have developed a different relationship with it. In Britain, weather is practically a social language. You can meet a stranger, look at the sky and say, "Bit miserable today," and somehow you've had a perfectly normal conversation. You haven't shared your childhood. You haven't discussed politics. You haven't revealed anything remotely vulnerable. You simply agreed that the sky is doing a terrible job, and now you're friends. The understatement is what gets me. I've heard people describe weather that I would classify as the universe has abandoned us as a bit fresh. Someone will stand in sideways rain and say, "Could be worse." Yes, obviously, a meteorological disaster could be worse. But that's not really the point. The weather conversation isn't always about accurately reporting atmospheric conditions. It's a ritual. It's a safe way of acknowledging discomfort without making a dramatic performance out of it. Maybe miserable out sometimes means exactly that. Maybe sometimes it means I'm tired today. Maybe it means I don't particularly want to be here. Weather gives people a socially acceptable way to say a little without saying everything. And British adaptation is real. But I think it is easy to misunderstand what adaptation means. People don't become biologically immune to drizzle after living here for 20 years. They become better prepared. They own waterproof shoes. They carry umbrellas. They stop treating a forecast as a promise. They make plans assuming the weather may change its mind. They learn that rain doesn't necessarily mean cancel everything. That is a completely different psychological relationship from expecting the weather to cooperate. In California, a sunny day felt normal enough that plans could be built around it. In London, plans are often built around the possibility that the weather will refuse to participate. But here's the funny thing. London has beautiful weather. Not constantly, not reliably, but when it happens, I notice it with an intensity I probably wouldn't have felt in California. A bright spring afternoon can transform the city. Suddenly, parks fill up. People sit outside cafes. Windows open. Streets feel louder. Everyone seems to have collectively remembered that the sun exists. I've watched strangers become visibly more cheerful simply because the sky stopped being gray. And those days taught me something important. Maybe I don't hate London. Maybe I hate the contrast. Maybe the very fact that beautiful weather feels special here is what makes it feel so powerful when it arrives. That brings us back to the psychology, because weather isn't experienced in a vacuum. Our reactions depend partly on what we expect, what we're doing, where we live, and what a particular day means to us. A rainy afternoon when you have nowhere to be can be peaceful. The same afternoon when you're late, underdressed, and carrying groceries can feel like an elaborate punishment. The weather hasn't changed nearly as much as your interpretation of it. That's why saying rain causes bad moods is too simple. Weather can influence how a day feels, but the emotional response is shaped by the person standing in it. And there is another important distinction. Feeling low because winter is difficult is not the same thing as having seasonal affective disorder or depression. Clinical depression involves much more than disliking gray skies. And sad is a specific condition with recurring seasonal patterns. That distinction matters because casual language can make serious mental health conditions sound like a joke. If someone is experiencing persistent or severe symptoms, the right response isn't to tell them to buy a brighter umbrella. It's to seek appropriate professional help. For ordinary weather sensitivity, though, the story is much messier and much more human. Once I started seeing weather as a combination of light, movement, comfort, and expectation, I began noticing how much London has actually been designed around water. Rain is not some surprise that the city has failed to anticipate. Streets, drains, roofs, transport systems, and modern planning all have to deal with it. London increasingly uses approaches such as sustainable drainage, green infrastructure, and water management systems to reduce the impact of rainfall. In other words, the city itself has been having a long-running negotiation with the sky. London isn't simply a wet place. It is a city that has spent centuries figuring out what to do with being wet. Historically, that relationship was even more serious. Before modern heating, transportation, and food systems, weather could affect harvests, prices, trade, health, and survival far more directly than it does for most people today. Flooding could disrupt transport, storms could damage ports, cold periods could affect food supplies. Over time, infrastructure developed partly as a response to those environmental pressures. We may think we're independent from weather now, but we've really just built an enormous technological system between ourselves and it. The strange part is that when that system works, we barely notice it. When it doesn't, the weather suddenly becomes very personal. And now that system has another problem to deal with. The traditional image of Britain is cold, gray, and wet, but the climate is changing in ways that don't fit that stereotype neatly. The Met Office reported that 2025 was the warmest year on record for the United Kingdom, and Greater London has experienced a dramatic increase in days above 30 degrees and nights above 18 degrees. Compared with earlier decades, climate change isn't simply turning Britain into a permanently rainy version of itself. It's producing a more complicated picture involving heat, intense rainfall, dry spells, drought risk, and greater extremes. That changes the question again. If I arrived in London expecting endless gray skies, I may have arrived with an outdated picture of British weather. The future might not be a more extreme version of the London I imagined. It could be a more unpredictable one. A winter can still feel damp and gloomy, while summer brings heat that older buildings weren't designed to handle. Heavy rain can create flooding, while a separate period of dry weather creates water stress. The old stereotype was simple: Britain equals rain. The emerging reality is much less convenient. Britain may increasingly equal weather that refuses to stay in one category. So after 2 years, where does that leave me? I still complain about the rain. I'm not going to stand here and pretend I've suddenly become one of those people who looks out at a horizontal downpour and whispers, "How lovely." I still have strong opinions about wet socks. I still believe umbrellas have a suspiciously low success rate considering how long humanity has been making them. And there are mornings when the sky is gray, my flat is cold, and I would happily exchange every one of London's charming historic buildings for a small patch of Southern California sunshine. But I don't think I can blame the rain anymore, at least not entirely. What I was missing wasn't just a particular weather pattern. I was missing the feeling that going outside was effortless. I was missing long stretches of light. I was missing a climate that rarely demanded my attention. I was missing the invisible convenience of knowing that the environment would usually cooperate with whatever I wanted to do that day. California made good weather feel so ordinary that I never had to think about it. London made me aware of something I had previously taken completely for granted. And maybe that's why the weather here can feel so strangely powerful. It isn't just falling from the sky. It changes what you wear, how you travel, where you spend money, how warm your home feels, whether you exercise, whether you meet a friend, how much daylight you experience, and sometimes even how you interpret the day you're having. The same cloud can mean nothing to one person and everything to another. The difference might be the job they have, the home they live in, the money they can spend, the distance they have to travel, or simply what they grew up believing a normal day should look like. I think that's the part I didn't understand when I first arrived. I thought I was comparing two climates. Really? I was comparing two ways of living inside a climate. Southern California taught me to treat sunshine as background. London taught me to notice weather as part of the architecture of everyday life. Sometimes that lesson is annoying. Sometimes it's beautiful. Sometimes it arrives as a wet commute. And sometimes it arrives as one unexpectedly perfect afternoon when the whole city seems to exhale at once. But now, after living in London for 2 years, I know many secrets which most of you don't even could imagine. So watch the video appearing on the right side to know the truth. And make sure to subscribe to my channel and also press the like button to automatically get notified of my future upcoming videos.